So, as I said, welcome to the part two in this kind of series that we've put together. I never thought I'd be presenting a series like this, to be honest, and I suppose none of you have ever kind of, well, you couldn't even think about what is going on in the world, and never mind what is on in business and things, really. So, again, what we're trying to do today for you is to kind of give you some kind of real structure. Now, last week we kind of tackled the basics of what we're on screen with now and things, really, but I'm trying to actually give the wedding photographers today pretty much dedicated advice, because even though as portrait photographers and things, really, our business is still being affected. Pretty much we're rebooking things, really. So most of the experienced photographers, we did our job right. You kind of, we've been generating our leads, we've been turning those into bookings, we've rescheduled the sessions, we know our basic restart date, we know our full-on start date until unless obviously a second kind of pandemic hits. We've budgeted all the way through and things, really, and within the experience group we basically produced in excess of 400 pieces of graphics in March and through the beginning of April for our group members to actually get out there in the community and work with and so on with it. So last week we basically just very quickly, we talked about that in a usual year, a startup business, only one half of them survives more than 5 years, and in fact only 1/3 of businesses, if they launch in a normal year, make it to 10 years. And what's going on now, as we've said already, is basically an unknown. However, this is going to close doors quicker than ever I've seen in 35 years here without any trouble and things, really. So yes, we're going to lose a lot of photography businesses, but what is worse, we are going to lose a huge amount of wedding photographers in this pandemic. I don't mean physically lose them, of course, that would be horrendous, but I mean their businesses will basically close the door. They will not survive. And obviously what I'm trying to do today is for those of you who basically haven't got a cash flow that you can kind of rely on, we're going to be looking at ways that you can basically survive and basically look at ways that you can generate some cash flow and so on. And I'm going to get straight into that, in fact, really, not like we did last week, actually waiting towards the end. So last week when we talked about, did video really kill the radio star? Well, basically we could say no, it didn't. For the exceptional photographers, those who really wanted to work the business, it basically made them, and the same within photography and things, really. But without doubt, there is a prediction that 65% of wedding photographers will have to get either another job or close their doors on wedding photography, and that is just in the UK. That is not being done as a frightener, that's just done as a reality check. And as many of you know, I'm not really known for my bedside manner. In other words, I basically call it as it is. We talk about things in the real world, we talk about planning, we talk about budgeting, we talk about making sure that we can cash flow and analysis, and making sure anything that we're doing can be structured back so we can see where it worked and where it failed and so on with it. And unfortunately, we are in these times that it's pretty much out of your control now, but you're either going to be a fighter, or you're basically going to use it as an excuse to close the door. I hope what I'm going to be saying to you today will give you some confidence for you to actually stay on board within the world of photography, and especially for those who are wedding photographers with us today online. Basically, you're going to actually kind of be able to actually survive this kind of virus pandemic that is affecting businesses, obviously, and one of them being yours. So what are photographers mainly worried about? The main thing will be the loss, obviously the loss of tens of thousands of pounds, and that would be pretty much, guaranteed. I know that some of you who've been able to actually get the small business grant, that will ease it a little bit, but if you're like most small businesses, you basically spend as much as you bring in, as it were, so you basically got nothing in the coffers to actually carry you through. When we were at our busiest with weddings, we were basically, we were able to actually shoot, okay, this is before 2000s, before digital photography and things really, but I was photographing a minimum of 1.5 weddings a day, if it wasn't 2.5 weddings a day myself, and basically I had 2 other photographers as well. And we were looking at some busy summer weekends where we'd be turning over just short of 17 grand in weddings alone, never mind our portrait business. Now, I know those are days of old, but even in those days, those are when you basically have to have a machine. Now, if leading up to this event, you've been organized, you're probably a little bit ahead of others, because you'll know that working busy makes you have a structure all the time, things really, but that still isn't going to prepare you for the loss of tens of thousands of pounds over the next few months. The biggest problem that we've got, of course, is that when are the weddings going to restart? That is probably the biggest question that you're asking yourself, and we'll try and answer that today for you. You're also going to be worried about payments not coming through because of weddings being cancelled, because of you anticipating album orders coming through and you haven't been able to chase them or get hold of them. People basically feeling like they've got less money, so they don't make those decisions today, or at least in your head, you are giving yourself these reasons why basically payments are being pushed back. If you had a credit controller within your business, like we always had to have, mainly because of our commercial business of old, we were basically chasing money the whole time. So as far as wedding payments were concerned, because they were paid 6 weeks before the wedding day, we didn't have any real problem following the weddings. The only problem that we would have now today of operating in the same kind of thing with that, if we've been paid for weddings that are now being cancelled or pushed back, how are we going to act with that? And obviously kind of get the questions into me and I'll answer them live as much as we can during the course of the session. And as far as the payment pushbacks are concerned, you're either going to be a knight in shining armor, or basically you're going to be a hard git. And obviously it depends on what kind of camp financially you're going to be in, and we'll talk about that during the session. Sessions cancelled, those might be a little bit of a drip income for you coming through, like your portraiture or perhaps the engagement shoots and the likes of things that you're filling up your weekday with. Perhaps those are now kind of gone, and obviously weddings cancelled, and weddings might actually come off the to-do list for many couple to look at within the next few years. You might be thinking anyway. So there's lots of things that you might be worried about. The first thing would be is to make an action happen. So in other words, will I get my small business grant? The first thing is, have you applied for it? If not, get it in. Obviously depends on your local area arrears and so on. If you're a shopkeeper and you pay rent, how are you going to be paying your rent? Well, there are kind of guidances now that won't allow a landlord to kind of really come after you up for 90 days, in fact, really, but you should be paying a little bit of rent rather than no rent at all. And it's things like rates and things you're not paying at present. You'll have had actually that grant coming through anyway. So let's kind of try and answer some of these questions in the reality. The good news is I'm not pushing experience down your throats today. Last week we saw, I hardly mentioned experience at all, in fact, really, and basically we saw how much many of you needed our help perhaps more than ever. And I think because we have a closed door, a network in other words, you really can't see what we're doing behind the scenes, and you basically couldn't see how ready my photographers were for the actual closure of the shops and things really. And within those first 2 weeks of closure, we still turned over in excess of £100,000 in portraiture sales, because we were doing online viewings at that point. Now obviously that's a big difference to the 1.1 or the 1.2 million that we'll be doing per month as a group, hope. But it still gives you an idea of kind of how it all kind of works. But it's all about being ready. It's always about looking ahead. And I have this ability to actually see beyond the now and basically kind of plan for it, because I'm always looking at the battle and not the war and not the battle. So I can look at the longer kind of outcome with it and things really. So we're not going to be talking much about experience today. What we do have to actually, though, address, I addressed it last week a little bit, but already I'm seeing and hearing so much false advice going on out there. I've got to say to you again, please, 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 do not become a sheep. Do not just follow something that somebody is saying to you, including myself, okay? I have to know you, I have to know your business to give you advice. Do not just take things at face value from any body at all. But what I'm going to be giving you today is reasons to be doing things, and I'll be able to show you why. That's the key thing. It still takes you to go out there and do it. But if you think there is magic fairy dust being applied, there isn't. It's working yourself full on, like I've had my experienced photographers. Obviously, there's been some of them who are directors of companies and they decided to furlough themselves. And as a director of several companies myself, if I furloughed myself, I couldn't be doing this today. All I could be doing was basically accounts. I couldn't be doing any work on social media, any work on business development, not even actually theoretically any work on business planning. And as a rule of thumb, as a director of a company, you don't really ever step away. You're paid minimum wage and you get everything else back in dividends. So that's just a tax thing and things really. So we're prepared for that. As far as the false prophets are concerned, anybody who's giving you advice, I would just really try and see through a lot of the bullshit that is going on out there, because what I'm aware of, it could really cost you your business. And I wish I could actually name people that I've seen saying such wrong things during the past few weeks with it. I only wish I could, but at least today what I'm trying to give to you is honest, structured advice that you should be able to follow and survive and make some money from as well. The other thing we've got to watch out for, of course, is false profits as far as financial profits is concerned. Next week, we start the financial series, a part of this, and we're going to be ripping it apart, and we're going to be looking at a new structure and what to actually aim for and how to actually make sure when we come out the other end, we're earning money and we're not just busy fools as such, really. But the key thing would be is to make sure whatever decisions you are making is you write them down and you come back to those decisions before you implement them. Okay, so number one, do not panic. Yep, I know it goes without saying, but you can't do anything. It's out of our control. We've just got to create a plan. That's the first thing we're going to do. And I know it's very easy to say, but you can ask Jay. When we looked that we were going to go into all the lockdown at the beginning of March, I already made our plans of what was going to happen on the day of lockdown. All the team knew what they were going to be doing. They were going to come in, grab their computers, leave the premises, and basically I wouldn't be seeing them perhaps for months. So when I say don't panic, you don't have to panic. Yes, you can worry. There's a difference between panic and worrying. And I absolutely guarantee you there's not a day since this began to actually take hold, going back to the kind of beginning of February, where we looked like it was going to be a real problem for us. There hasn't been a day that I don't worry about things in a way, but it's a worry about, okay, what do I need to solve today? That's the key thing. What do I need to look at ahead of time so I can actually fix it now? I don't want to be burying my head in things really. And one of those heads to bury is going to be, you know, cash flow. Without a doubt, you need to know when money is going to kind of run out. That's it. We talked about this a little bit last week, but we're going to talk about it in depth more for next week. But the main thing would be is to hang on to your cash, and hang on to the cash. That might even mean hanging on to bride and groom's monies a little bit. We'll talk about that if you want later on today. It might mean that you are going to be returning that money to them if they have to have it back to do with your contract, but you don't want to actually just give it out all at once. You need to spread it, very much like holiday companies are doing at present. If they basically gave it all back to you today, I can't remember how much it's worth. Is it 1.3 billion or something like that? They'd have to hand back today, and basically that would collapse all of the travel throughout the UK. Wouldn't happen. There would be nobody out there doing anything and so on. So in the same way, by just hanging onto your cash a little bit, picking up the phone, speaking to your bride and saying, oh, hi, yeah, and having a chat about their wedding. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but then getting to that point. Look, I know that you've paid the full balance with us. I need to know some kind of things of what you're planning to do first. So I'm addressing the question. And then the next thing, if you've got people asking for their monies back because of the reason, and perhaps you don't have that money or you cannot afford to give that money back, at that point, you've got to accept you've been a bit of an idiot because you've been working on past cash to actually, you know, pay for things in the future, as it were. So clients who kind of paid you 2 years ago are now actually getting around to doing their wedding album, so they've got time. You're now panicking because you haven't put that money aside for their wedding album and so on. So hang on to your cash is key, and basically just find a way that you can actually give it back to the clients and spread it out and things really, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. Only pay what you can afford. That goes back to the rent, that would go back to finance, that would go back to credit cards, that would go back to anything you do. So even if you're leasing a vehicle, contact the leasing company. If you're leasing the cameras, contact them, contact everybody in your power. That is the main thing. You know, when I suggested to the team that we give the Photographer Academy away, the basic level, the £49 one away for free, the first thing that they said to me is, how much is this going to hurt you financially, Mark? And I said, it's going to hurt us a lot. However, it's not that time. It's this time to really show our true colors, exactly who we are. We're 11 years in business, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in business. Business is always tough, and it's about trying to make sure that you support people. That's the key thing. And that will be not only your family, but your friends, past clients, and obviously those who are around you. So there's going to be times for you to go, do you know what? Let's make some money out of this. And there's going to be another time where you go in, do you know what? I just need to be a good human being. And there's neither is wrong, and you mustn't see them as wrong. You just must take people as they are, and you have to actually answer to yourself. There's nobody else who can answer for you on that. But only pay out what you can afford is the key thing, and speak to all creditors and so on. And that includes the bride and grooms, perhaps. You definitely, I'm sure by now, have been looking at your wedding contract and seeing what it says. If you have law care within the UK with the likes of the BIPP, this is a time to be speaking to them and getting their advice and not mine, because they're the lawyers and I'm not. But make sure you've got your contract at hand, so at least they can actually get a chance to look at it. And as I said, with the law care, if you need those kind of help, the instant solutions, that's the key thing. As far as business interruption insurance is concerned, possibly you're not going to get any money back from this unless you've got an absolutely exceptional insurance case. I know I'm with Towergate, and so far they're telling us that we don't have a business interruption in any way assigned to our contract with it, and obviously nobody in their right mind is going to issue one now. So basically what we've got to look at is all the kind of the T's and C's, both ours and theirs, and actually find our way through this kind of forest of litigation and words. Then we can actually find some kind of clarity in things. And one of those kind of key things is contacting your clients, and I would encourage you to call them. We will always recommend that transparency is best if possible. You might not be able to give them all the answers that they need at this point, but at least you need to know what their concerns are. You need to know what their plans are. You need to know what they're doing. And obviously you need to start to talk about rescheduling the wedding dates and so on and so on. The next thing would be trying to make yourself more available, of course. So in other words, pretty much we know we're not going to get holidays this summer. I think you'd absolutely be mad if you were traveling abroad for holiday or for work, because in case you get stuck somewhere that you shouldn't be. In fact, we should have been out at a wedding in Ibiza in a few weeks' time. And going back to February, remember all this advanced planning I was saying to you, I was saying to my wife, who's basically the boss, I said, look, there is no way that we can go to the Ibiza wedding at all if we're going to get stuck there. This is obviously before all the close down and so on. And these are probably for the overseas wedding photographers who are traveling out. You are going to probably have a bigger decision to make, because it might not just affect the one wedding that you're turning down, but it could affect lots of weddings that you had planned both in other countries and in the UK. So basically, you've got to make sure that you become more available and you're speaking to those overseas weddings and things, really, like I have. So just to actually make sure that you're all on the same kind of playing field and you all know the rules, what each other are playing with. But as I said, probably you're going to have to actually free up, your Sundays and your weekdays as well and things, really. I don't think this is going to be the doom and the gloom. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I think there's going to be opportunities here a little bit for some of you and less for others, of course, and things, really. But the main thing is you've got to be available. And what I would definitely encourage you to do is have a invisible web page that you can basically show a calendar on and things, really. So we sent ours out in end of February. So our bride knew what was the plan, knew what was going to happen in case of. We did create a C19 page on our wedding site as well. So basically clients knew, in case they'd already booked the weddings, instead of just getting through to us, they could actually find some information out basically there at hand straight away. Create a circle of photographers. As I can't remember who said it, but in a battle we need allies. And that is absolutely where we're at now. So in other words, we're going to be basically faced with brides trying to reschedule weddings on dates that you're not available, in locations that are either too far away or inaccessible, or you don't want to do it from. So having a circle of photographers will kind of allow you to at least pass on to like-minded couples the different information and so on with it. I believe Jay is setting up a post on the Photographer Academy group on Facebook with it. So it's basically put in names of photographers and links, I believe it's going to be, so that you can actually see people in the area. We'll try and work on that for you, but we're not really here to be doing that, if that makes sense. We are just trying to assist you. We've always had photographers who work for us, but of course we've had from time to time a photographer go sick, and basically we'd be able to actually ring up one of our other photographer friends, and basically if they were available, they would do it for us. And if not, then obviously we try and actually find one of their other photographers and things, really. So this is a time when Circle is basically not your enemy, they are allies, and I would definitely encourage you to be doing that. In the same way, though, I would try and be a part of a circle of suppliers. So make sure that all the local hotels, the caterers, car company, florists, whatever it is, if they have created their own circle anyway, then I would encourage you to try and join that circle. If you cannot see one, then basically create one, and that might also include other photographers as well, as I said. And no matter what, you have to increase your 21 prices no matter what, unfortunately. And as far as how much is concerned, I would say you've got to be doing between about 5 to 10%, and I would do it as soon as you finish this webinar today, no matter what. I'd also probably change my price list to actually suspend or remove any weekday discounts that might get applied if people are booking Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday weddings, if that's something that you offer. Okay, so what else are you worried about? Booking deposits on hand. If they're a deposit, it's a deposit. There's probably, it's going to have to be returned because it's not a booking fee. And if it says in your contract about it, again, another reason to discuss with law care is my contract deposit, is that returnable or not? Well, we've always had a non-refundable booking fee. We talk it through with the clients when they make the booking, because obviously it's a first come, first serve when you're only doing perhaps now one wedding a day, and you need to make sure they've kind of put in the money's where the mouth is. If I'm lucky, you've had a decent booking fee anyway, and if I'm really, really lucky, you haven't spent it, it is in a call account ready for that wedding day itself and things really. And if you don't learn anything from this pandemic and this business situation, you need to create a second call account within your business bank. It's usually free of charge, and you start to actually stash all of your booking fees into that account, so they're not getting swallowed up into the wedding. Those booking deposits are basically for a rainy day, and if you had that account now, I promise you, you'd be less panicky than many are. You're worried about wedding rearrangements, whether you're going to be able to actually do the wedding for the same client, because obviously if you're a decent photographer, you're probably already mostly booked out for next year by now, and you're probably half filled for 2022 as well. So as far as the wedding rearrangements are concerned, that was why I was saying make your diary available as a private page, and basically make sure that there's an ability for them to actually see it while they're sat down with either their wedding planner or their the venue, and for them to be able to actually book you for that date there and then without thought. So that's absolutely key. One of our things though, we are charging £100 wedding booking fee, a rearrangement booking fee, but that is being credited off their package. And the reason that we're doing that is we didn't want brides holding out on 2 or 3 different dates to suit them, and we felt if we had a free, or like the 25 quid or a 50 quid holding fee on it, we basically could actually shoot ourselves in the foot. So we made the decision to actually charge £100. You could charge £200 if that's the case and things really. But remember, at this point, before you're taking on any other new bookings, you need to have nailed your wedding contract to make sure it is absolutely solid in case this should happen again. So not only are you going to be worried about weddings being rearranged and you can't do them, but you're also going to be worried about weddings being cancelled full stop. You know what, let's not bother, let's go to the registry office, or whatever excuse they're going to make, but you're going to be worried about that. And that is a totally different thing, being cancelled compared to actually being rearranged to do with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're in. And obviously, another thing you're going to be worrying about is basically couples who fully paid you. How are you going to handle those refunds to them, and do you need to fully refund them, whether it's a cancellation or a rearrangement of the wedding itself and things really. Then, as far as 2021 is concerned, should I charge my booking card? Should I change my booking contract? The answer is yes. You have to. Can I fit any more weddings in? The answer is yes. You have to make it happen, because this debt that we've incurred now, in whatever level it's going to be at, will be still debt in 12 months' time, and we need to make sure that we're actually addressing that. So you've got to fit more weddings in than normal. Will they still book me? I think that comes out in several ways. One of the ways could be as if you're a real hard git and your name gets spread around. So in other words, you're not going to refund, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. You're actually playing a hard ball. In other words, you, instead about them. And then I would say that the social media is going to be your absolutely worst nightmare. You know, just be aware of that. So whatever cards you're playing now is what you're going to be remembered for a very long time. And with that in mind, you should be asking past clients to do reviews, because they've got time at present online, or many have. so you can actually get some decent feedback going onto your social media as well within things. Will you survive till 2021? I wish I could sprinkle fairy dust over you all, honestly, and say yes. I can't say that at all. It obviously depends how strong your business is and how much you're willing to diversify during the next 12 months. I don't think it's just getting to 2021. I think it's getting really to 2022. I think that's the main thing. You'll probably, by hook or by crook, survive till, say, October, November. This wedding pandemic cancellations and so on is going to be for a very long time. I mean, the catering industries and the hospitality industry, I should say, is pretty much looking at September, October before a restart. In fact, the reality is they're going to be lucky if it's going to be November. When are they going to actually change any of the social distances? Will guests even be allowed to come to a wedding? So it's one thing opening back up again, but it's another thing having the same kind of wedding that they wanted to actually have to begin with. So surviving to the 2022 is really in the plan that we should be having together, not surviving until 2021. And the other question is probably, should I get another job? Well, 75,000 Amazon jobs. My nephew, who's basically head of Iceland, one of the Iceland stores, and basically he said it's great. He said, I've got plumbers and chippies and basically builders. Everybody wants a zero contract and they can work now. And they'll work as many hours as I'm giving them. And he said it's just like, you know, the best thing that could happen, because otherwise we're delivering till 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, oh my God, that's how tough these businesses are having out there. But however, if you need another job, and if it doesn't affect the grants, or if it doesn't affect other things that you've been able to actually achieve, then the sensible answer would be, do you need a job now? I might say if your cash flow is at a full standstill, I would have to say you've got to actually look after your family now. Do you need another job before 2021? I think we're going to see by October, November, and obviously you will know your finances by then. And I would say that probably by the time you get to October, November, you'll know whether you're going to leave this industry or you're going to have to get another job and just shoot weddings on the likes for the weekends and during your holidays and things. Really, that's the reality. And if you joined us late, I'm sorry if I'm kind of addressing a lot of the reality questions that are out there, but that's the way we formulate a plan. That's how we can kind of get through it. Okay, so we touched on it a little bit. Am I ready to pick up more work? Because not every photographer, I said already, will be available to reschedule that date. So brides will come looking at alternatives. So you better being a photographer over the past 4 to 6 weeks and showing off your images and social interacting and getting your name out there and being nice and getting reviews and creating video and all the things that you've used the excuses that you've been too busy to do, you should have been doing. And I hope you're going to keep it flowing during the post-pandemic and things, really. But people are going to be looking at you. So if you've done what I've asked you to do well, you've been looking at your websites, you've fine-tuned them, you've got a different looking kind of page than ever before, you've addressed all the new photographs. So it's not, if you look on Facebook, you're one photographer, or Instagram, and then if you look on your website, you're a totally different photographer. You've had a chance to marry all these 3 things together so you can actually pick up more. People might use this period as an excuse to stop, so kind of to put them off from getting married. We're never going to be able to kind of either stop them from thinking about getting married or to start them thinking about getting married. So in other words, because they might have lost loved ones, and you know, it's horrendous, and so many people that have passed away from this pandemic in such a short time, but family and key events and everything else are more important than ever before. So we could be lucky, not in the short term, but in the longer term, where once more it's put people back on the plan. So in other words, instead of putting these things off, they're actually going to go, do you know what? this is it, let's do it now, let's just do it because I love you and you love me, and basically I want us to actually be in a full-time married relationship for one reason or another and things really. But we must be ready, because when they start to actually look at us, and rescheduling dates as well, of course, for some, we need to actually be the brightest candle or the brightest light in the room. Otherwise, they're basically going to navigate towards the other brightest lights and so on. Can I work for other photographers if I'm available? I would say that in the circle that I'm encouraging you to do, that if you don't have a wedding in a few weeks' time, that I would say yes, you should take that wedding from that photographer. Yes, it's going to be a greatly reduced rate, but again, it's about putting cash in the pocket. You know, I don't think you can go to Tesco's and work the day there and get 200, 300 quid in your pocket as such, really. So just be aware of how much somebody can afford to be paying you as a wedding photographer. Can I get into venues that I've always wanted to work at? Possibly, in fact. If you've been active in the past 3 to 4 weeks, you've basically rekindled contacts that you might have had, you've been in touch, you've checked how everybody is, and you're basically beginning to actually massage the relationship that you can actually build and go on from there and things really. So be ready to pick up some work in some way. Let's earn some money, yeah? So the first thing would be, and this is all about the cash flow. And if I could have put up there, instead of a bride and groom image, if I could have put up there, this is not the time to be greedy, that's what it should have said, okay? So the first thing is digital assets. Second thing will be marketing for new weddings. And then the third thing will be offering other services of some kind. So the one thing that, if you are a owner of a company and you're in bad times, we've talked about a few of the things to actually have control of, i.e. the cash flow. Second thing would be, what assets do we have and what can we sell off? I'm not suggesting that you log a load of cameras on eBay or whatever it is, because very soon they're going to be falling through the floor and everything else and things really. So that's not what I'm on. I'm on about the digital assets, the digital files that you still have. And if you don't include all of the wedding images in your collections or packages or whatever services that you offer to a bride and groom, this is your chance. This is your chance to be selling them the other images or the images full stop. We don't actually include digital files within our packages, as it were. It's always an extra. Why? That's because the decision that we've made, and obviously in this instance here, we've got the ability to actually be selling them. Now, as a rule of thumb, we used to always sell our negatives in year 6, year 5, because we were responsible for the care of those images until year 6 for legal reasons, and that is no different with digital files. That's one of the great things about having online galleries and so on, is that they're stored there. And so on. So the digital assets is something that you can start to market to straight away. So the past clients, can I sell the digital files? If so, for how much? Don't get greedy. Remember those big words, yeah? Can I sell albums to those who have not had one yet? That's another thing. I'm sure the likes of the Loxley Colour will be having some restart kind of offers. Most people will. So I can't see them being any different with it. And basically, I would still, though, be less greedy on the profit and just make sure there is decent profit. So working instead of ×5, ×7, ×9, whatever you work on, probably charging the ×2.5 to ×3 as a special offer if you've never offered wedding albums in the past and things really. You could even go ahead and actually mock up wedding albums, we'll talk about that in a minute, to actually kind of show off to the client, to actually see, give them a preview of what it could look like. can I encourage ordering from past clients? So in other words, if you have online galleries now, just emailing out to your wedding clients, especially now that we know Loxleys are back in production. It means that we can start actually selling with confidence again, instead of having to wait because obviously doors are closed with manufacturing and delivery. One of the great things about Loxley Colour is they offer a real white labeling. So in other words, if you ask for a white label delivery to the client direct, they will do that for you at no extra charge. And of course, basically they don't include anything to do with Loxleys within that box either with it. But it is a way for us to actually start to reach out and start to encourage clients to actually order their wedding albums, especially if you do have a website that actually you can actually add lots of things to, i.e. galleries and proofing without costing you. That would be absolutely key for you to actually kind of show off and protect your images at the same time. What else can you be selling to those clients? Can you actually be selling them reprints and things for the wall and so on? As I said, those big words, do not be greedy, is the encouragement here at this point. But just because you might be strapped for cash, and I've talked about this within my experience group, just because a few of you might be strapped for cash, don't presume the wedding couple are. Because they might be still in full-time jobs, working from home, furloughed, or on full-time pay, and basically at that point they can't spend it on anything. Okay, they can do a Just Eat. Why anybody would be ordering takeaway online at this present time, I've got no idea at all. But that's my personal. I've never had a takeaway delivered, so I'm not sure what it's like. Except for Jay has a Domino's delivered for us every so often. But yeah, you know. But these things are your decisions and their decisions as well, and they do have money to spend. That's the key thing as well. Never to forget. So we touched on, can we offer an album discount? Yes, I would definitely say yes to that. And can I open up the online galleries to buy from? If possible, yes, you should. So a couple little things then I would do. So if you were looking at showing a bride and groom a possible album design, I would knock it up. A fundy design takes around about probably no more than 10 minutes to actually create a basic one, probably with finessing about another 10-15 minutes tops, a little bit longer when you're first getting going with it, probably an hour. But if you're sat at home not doing anything, this is something that you can physically actually do. Couple that up with an online viewing in exactly the same way that we proof all our wedding albums, to make sure that basically people can see that it's correct before we go to print with. Then I already have that facility, so I don't have any real trouble with that. If you have to offer extra product and not discounts. So when I talked about special offers before and discounts, I didn't really mean financial discounts. That's to do with pricing up. So when I'm saying about times 2.5, times 3, whatever, yes, that is a complete ripping apart of the profit line. But there's going to be a level of where people will pay and people won't pay. So if, you know, going back to the digital files, if you say, well, you can have all the digital files for 500 quid, there's only going to be a few people who take you up on it. If you say that the digital files, including a print release, is basically 125 quid, you're going to have lots of people biting off your hand and things really. So it is all about the structure of the business that you have now. I don't know what it is, so I can't give you absolutely distinct advice, but what I would say is just do not be greedy. You know your clients, you know how much they've spent, and you know how much they're willing to spend in the future, as it were. So what you could offer is basically perhaps free parents albums and use the likes of the Loxley Colour kind of multi-packages and things really. So they do bundles. One of our kind of best sellers in the albums as such really is the Prophetic Bundles. And this includes a variety in different sizes and so on. perfect for the likes of bridesmaids and so on and so on. But again, it's just trying to make sure that it fits in with your type of clientele and things as well. If you are going to go through the album design, and let's say they've paid for 60 images to go into an album, well, do a different design where basically you could have 120 images in there or something like that. So at least you've got the chance to charge them more if they like the second album design. Often if we've done our job right and we show them, we give them a little bit of a taste of what it could be like, then it's very hard for them to say no and things really. And then of course, if you're going to do it, then I would just make sure that you've got an order now special going on and things, and that's what I would recommend you looking out for if there is a Loxley Colour kind of special album price or whatever. 3 months, in other words, can you help to spread the payments even for the bride and groom? I think that you could, as long as it doesn't affect your cash flow and as long as you don't order the album until at least the second payment has gone through. What you don't want to do is do all the work and actually have no profit in the bank, but at least in the cash flow, that will actually give it to you straight away. So it will help the couples to afford to buy their albums, and that might be the reason that they've just been putting it off and say. And as I mentioned, that a lot of people are on 80% of salaries with no way to spend money, except for actually the likes of Amazon or whatever it would be and things. And I suppose one of the biggest tips of the day is, can you tap into the grey pound pocket, i.e. Mark Cleghorn and Debbie Cleghorn? The reason being in that is that we've probably got more money than our kids have. And if we know that, then basically they'll probably have money to spend in this time. They're probably also locked down. We're young parents as such. Not everybody's as young as we are. Speak of the devil, she walks in. And in the same way, what you've got to be aware of is how are you tapping into them. And we always had on our booking contract the bride's mum and dad's home address and so on, and the groom's mum and dad's home address as well. And so we could actually contact them directly no matter what. But I would at least play the card with the bride and grooms. We'd like to write to your mum and dad if that's okay. We've got some special offers coming through for parents from our suppliers, and we just thought they might be interested in them. If you don't ask the question, you can't get the answer. Jay, question time, shall we?
Yep, I've got some questions for you. Okay, right, let's get to the top. I'll go to right from the top in no particular order. Well, they are in order, but not in an order as in content. In this environment and going forward, especially to do with weddings and the possibility that in the near future when weddings get going, they'll be restricted in numbers possibly. Do you think it might be a time to think about adding more video into your wedding packages?
Oh, good question. Didn't expect that one.
No, me. I thought it was a good question as well.
Okay, so my gut, that's better to go with first, okay? So my gut says, don't panic and don't knee jerk into something like that to begin with. As a video company, we're really good at what we do. However, do I really want to actually sell another service alongside my own? So if I knew, what am I trying to say? My gut reaction says no. And then my longer term thinking thinks, well, okay, if I know somebody who's a videographer and I can employ for the day and I can actually tag it on to the end of my weddings, there's a possibility. But I'm a photographer and I don't want to confuse what I do. In other words, what I'm selling is wedding photography or portrait photography or commercial photography. I like it nice and simple so I don't distract away from my core. I think everybody's doing Facebook Live and Zoom. God, they've discovered Zoom now, haven't they? You know, and basically, you know, they're going to be Zooming their weddings from now on. And I would say, okay, so my instant gut is no, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to say no.
Cool.
because of Zoom.
Okay, so this is going back to where you were talking earlier about putting your prices up for 2021.
Yeah.
So Paul has asked, I had actually put my prices up last week. Do you think in this time, with brides possibly booking, that it would be an idea to say for next year, but to say if they book me now, I'll honour my 2020 prices?
No.
Go with a price increase.
Yeah, I would just say that you're fixing the prices for 21 and 22.
Brilliant. I think you touched on this, but it came in quite early, and I wondered if they were going to jump the gun. How heavy, well, it's questions about marketing. It was asked a couple of times, actually. Should I still be marketing my business? And if so, what's the best way to approach that at the moment?
Okay, so the simple answer is yes, but in a different way. So within the experience group as such, really, we've had spend on hold now for pretty much since the pandemic. So we basically said no spending any money, even though Facebook is cheap and everything else with it, really. So I have to say the same thing to you is don't spend any money, but just get more visual in different ways. So I definitely getting my brides to kind of give reviews for me on social media. I would be featuring their image on my social media page as my image of the day or whatever it is, and get her to actually share it and things with you. There's more ways to marketing than just spending lazy money. Creating that circle of wedding vendors alone could be doing a little bit of marketing that you never anticipated or you didn't have the time to do before. Whereas that business-to-business relationship has always been very, very important to us.
I was just about to bring that up, and I knew you'd bring it up, but I would have said that circle is your best friend at the minute and a real perfect time to do it from the marketing.
Jay, before I forget, mate, thanks for doing the questions for us today. Cheers.
That's all good, mate. No worries. I lost my place now. Oh, okay. So this goes back to credit card refunds and so on. If somebody's paid a booking fee by credit card and you are not able, no, that's not the question, to be honest.
Okay.
They've paid a booking fee by credit card and you are not able to do the new date, are they entitled to their money back?
It's nothing to do with the credit card. In fact, it's all to do with your contract.
Yeah.
So why I said chargeback is that basically that's the clogger up of small claims courts. I would not like to be a magistrate or a judge coming out the other end of this because they are going to be it's going to be a long time before anybody gets money. What I would go back to, though, is that knight in shining armor element. So you have to have a clear policy on what your message on refunds is, and that's at the top of my list here, isn't it? Yeah. As far as are they entitled to a refund because of the credit card, the answer is no. It's all to do with your contract. So that is the answer to that question. As far as if you have to give a refund and the booking payment had been paid by credit card, let's face it, most has, you should actually be funding it back onto the same card. Do not forget that, because you need to claim back your kind of percentages that you would have lost as well from the credit card the company.
Brilliant. This actually, well, we've just had a new question in, but the one previous is very similar. I think you've kind of already answered it. With regards to this year, so not looking at 2021 or 2022 when possibly some normality comes back in, would you be discounting your rates now to get busy?
No, I can't. I can't discount because I've got lost profit. And the last thing that you should do is throw good money away after what's already gone. I know it sounds ridiculous, this, but unless you get a knee-jerk reaction from a group of photographers in your area with it, and I would still encourage you to stay by it. You live on professionalism, not on basically being cheap. Alan Sugar, I can't remember his exact expression, Alan Sugar of Amstrad and the Apprentice series and everything else, he said, making something cheap doesn't make you a good salesman. So in other words, if your product doesn't sell on its own right for its own merits, there's something seriously going wrong. If you are not really selling yourself and your product is not up to the level of you think it is, one of the problems that you're going to have is people are not going to see the worth, they're not going to have the time the worth, but they are going to be knee-jerking at this point. So the most special thing that you can do is make sure your calendar is visible and the availability. It doesn't have to be the price, it's just the ability. One of the things I would say is that you introduce a flexible booking fee for any new weddings coming through. That's I think more important than a discount on the wedding day itself. Do you understand what I mean by that, Jay?
I'm not sure if it's come across well enough. I think I understand it, obviously being around you for a long time, but do you mean to be negotiable with a client? Is that what you mean?
I think having flexible cancellation policies now in a forward direction is probably one of the biggest messages that you could be telling bride and grooms to be. Because that's what, in fact, what they're more interested in than saving a couple of quid. It's all now about how good you are in customer service, how good you are as a person, and basically what your future policies are going to be. Because let's face it, if there was ever a wedding insurance ability out there that would cover this, it would so be fast taken off the contracts of future ones straight away, wouldn't it? It doesn't mean that couples aren't going to be buying wedding insurance. In fact, if anything, they're going to be more interested in wedding insurance than ever before. We've always told bride and grooms to take out wedding insurance. It was one of the main things that we told them as they kind of booked us. And it wasn't for us, but just for the unexpected element. But I can tell you categorically, this has changed the whole part of cancellation policies fully. I believe that it would have been March that John Lewis Debenham's, I think the wedding plan insurance as well, released statements, I can't remember exactly what it was, informing customers that they're unable to accept any new policies to do with wedding insurance due to the outbreak. So I think it even stopped. So what are you going to do as their little bit of wedding insurance? That is a much more powerful message that you can basically put out there than actually fleecing yourself to the bone. Hope that helps.
I think so, mate. I mean, in reflection to what we said earlier as well, is, you know, the wedding days, yes, they're on hold or they're having to be rescheduled, but they're still going to be the most important days for some of these couples' lives, and they're still going to want the memories of that. So we shouldn't be, you know, and as you've said, yeah, there are people that are going to be financially hit by losing their jobs or the reduction in money. But you also talked about the parents are heavily involved in the wedding packages and things like that. So we shouldn't presume that they can't afford. It's about meeting their needs and their time and their dates and times and being flexible. So brilliant. I think that's it. Is there a where we can find examples of wedding contracts? Well, we don't have an updated one of ours, is there?
We can't give ours out anyway in things, really. We could hypothetically look at one in a future. I can show you mine, but I can't give it to you.
No,
sounds wrong.
All of them. We always recommend that they've got to go through your own solicitors and everything like that as well. And obviously, there now in this time, there are elements that have to be hugely looked at and changed. Sorry, something else is just.
The likes of the BIPP, you know, I'm sure they used to have a wedding contract many years ago. I'm sure the MPA did as well and things, but whether they've updated themselves or not, I'm not quite sure and things really. But, you know, one of the main things for you to go off, so we put on a C19 information page as soon as it was basically looking like we had to do something with it. So I wrote a little message from me and the team, Then I had some kind of links, and I've updated links since as well, in fact. We talked about getting back to business element. We talked about what my contract says. We talked about all the kind of policies that is to do with us and actually how it all kind of ties itself in together and things really. We've even got that part about if the new date is available with us, please book it directly online with our special calendar. There is a charge of £100, but this is only to stop spam bookings. This £100 fee will be credited off your wedding package. It's having information is absolutely key. You know, even last couple of weeks, we changed the whole message about the experience group. And I'm trying not to do too big a sell on the experience group with you at present, but we're fully aware with the amount of inquiries that we are getting now. Basically, you need us now more than ever before. Yes, we're mainly based on portrait photography, and that's what we're doing. And that's what this other side of your business that we're trying to create and things really. But we've adjusted things, do you know what I mean? So we've changed, we've removed, because basically we can't have a meeting until next year, it looks like anyway. So we just said to all our existing members and anybody new who's going to join, you have to take on our online membership for the year and not our community one that we do. So we've had to take that off the table. And then the main thing was then, of course, in the same way is Laura, who's in charge of business management. She said, look, Mark, you know, the 200 quid, it's not a lot of money to you, but it is a lot of money to those who are looking to join now. Is there a way that we can do anything with it? I said, well, I can't scrap it because it's already reduced down from 500 quid because we had a special running at the beginning of the year and she asked to keep it going and we've run it. But what we have done is we've spread the 200 quid over the 12 months for you now. So you don't even need to pay us 200 quid in advance now. So there has never been a better opportunity to completely change your business with it and things really. And again, what we needed to make sure was our message is the right message for you and your business as well. Of course, that's absolutely essential that you're following your plan, not mine or anybody else's. When though you're paying us for that, absolutely, what do I need to do now? Then get out of our way. We've even had to actually change things on the kind of the entry level into experience. I need to get you busier now more than anything else. You know, I was mentioning you, the graphics girls, have produced over 400 pieces of graphics and interactive elements for our photographers since the beginning of March. And we're only in we're only 7 or technically 6 weeks away from when we changed things. We're technically in week 6 now when we talk about it with the experience group. We've got our 14-week plan and we're in week 6 and everything is structured all the way through it. We're dripping bits of information so they're aware what's going to happen next week. However, they know the things that they've got to concentrate on now and things really. And so the things for you to do now, it has to be in the now rather than tomorrow. You can't afford to be putting anything off in any of these decisions in front of what I'm recommending you do here is basically, I recommend everything in front of us, you should action this week without fail. And don't sleep until you've actioned it all. It's got to be done. You cannot bury your head in the sand. You can pretend to be an ostrich like some, but you've got to make those decisions.